The X-Pro2 was Fuji's first interchangeable mirrorless camera, and it had a lot of things going for it right from the back, from its retro design to some of its functionalities like having shutter speeds and aperture dials on the lens itself. Of course, the X-Pro2 also catered to some customers who really wanted the optical viewfinder, and it utilized the hybrid multi-viewfinder that offered both an optical and an electronic viewfinder within the same window. And the optical viewfinder itself would also adapt to some of the different lenses that were available to magnify the scene, which was of course unique, but that was over 2.5 years ago. Today, we're going to take a look at Fuji's latest successor to the X-Pro2, the Fujifilm X-Pro2. So you want to stay tuned and check this out. Hi, I'm Billy of the Fuji Guys, and today we're going to take a first look at Fuji's latest interchangeable mirrorless camera, the X-Pro2. This has been a long time coming about this camera. We have a lot of loyal fans that like the style of this camera. In fact, the X-Pro2 itself retains the looks, design, shape, and feel of the original X-Pro1. Fuji hasn't gone too far away from it, and of course, if you were using this camera out in the street, it looks pretty much like the original X-Pro1, which is actually not a bad thing considering the design of this camera in the first place had a very timeless look to it. Now, of course, although it shares a lot of the stylings of the X-Pro1, a lot of things have changed, including the build and body of the camera. It's now completely weather resistant, using a magnesium alloy frame that completely surrounds it. Although the size is somewhat similar, it is slightly a little bit larger, and it slightly weighs a little bit more because of course some of the new hardware that's built onto the X-Pro2. The grip itself, although remains in terms of design very similar, has little rubber inserts both in the front and the back of the camera that makes it a lot easier to hold in one hand. In fact, the button layouts on the back of the camera also have been shifted to the right-hand side, allowing for more of a one-handed operation instead of kind of using two hands to operate the camera effectively. So overall, the X-Pro2 style-wise has remained the same, but the internals of the camera has changed completely, and today we can take a look at some of the key aspects, including the new image sensor that's used on this X-Pro2. So the guts of the X-Pro2 is completely different than the original X-Pro1. First off, it uses now a 24.3 megapixel APS-C X-Trans CMOS 3 sensor. It uses Fuji, of course, a unique X-Trans configuration that makes do without having an optical low-pass filter, allowing you for a lot more sharper images. But also the X-Trans also randomizes the Bayer, I guess, the color filter arrays, so that of course you reduce things like moire when you don't have an optical low-pass filter. Now, the sensor itself allows for almost twice the speed in terms of readout speeds compared to the existing sensors found on the cameras like the X-T1, X-T10s, X100D. It also uses a new manufacturing technique that uses copper wiring instead of aluminum to, of course, reduce the amount of noise between the photo sites and therefore allowing for higher sensitivity while maintaining very, very low noise. And again, being a sensor that offers 24 megapixels, you need to do a lot of these technologies in order to keep the noise level down. In fact, the quality of the sensor itself is actually higher than that of the X-T1 and X-T10 when it comes to high ISO and low noise, even though it still offers a little bit more megapixel, which is actually very key to a lot of people who are looking at this camera, because if you look at Fuji's whole camera lineup, it's all about image quality, and of course the X-Pro2 is right up there as its flagship model. Now, the sensor itself also offers a 40% increase in, I guess 40% more coverage in the in the phase detection portion of the sensor, allowing you to obtain, of course, faster focusing. You know, phase detection is very similar to some of the DSLR in the way it actually quickly and accurately obtain focus on the subject, which is, again, very, very important in this time of age. The sensitivity of the X-Pro2 now goes all the way up to 12,800, which is quite high, and for most part, you know, you probably not even have to reach that high, but if you do, again, the noise level on this camera is incredible compared to its predecessor, the X-Pro1. The image sensor on the X-Pro2 is not the only thing that has changed. It also utilizes a brand new image processor called the X-Processor Pro, which is 4 times faster than the existing processor found on Fuji's current lineup. Now, this processor is responsible for things like the autofocus speed, the shot-to-shot time, including the blackout time between shots, which is now almost half that of the existing camera lineup that Fuji has, due to, again, that speed of the processor. In addition to that, of course, the processor handles the unique Fuji JPEG engine, which is, of course, award-winning for its color and unique look, as well, of course, as the auto white balance system that is, you know, top-notch in Fuji's camera system. In fact, you know, looking at a Fuji camera, those are a couple of the 2 key things that really put Fuji apart, you know, in terms of, you know, image quality. And again, the JPEG engine and the unique auto white balance system of Fuji is very accurate, making it very simple for everyone to actually take some really good pictures. Now, of course, the processor inside the camera also offers the ability to now do compressed lossless RAW. So now not only can you shoot JPEG with RAW, but you can also now enable lossless RAW compression to, of course, reduce the file size when shooting with, of course, this 24.3 megapixel image sensor. If you look at the shutter speed dial, you notice that there's actually an 8000 number marked on the dial itself. And that's because the X-Pro2 now utilizes a brand new focal plane shutter that offers shutter speeds up to 1/8000th of a second. It also allows for a faster sync speed of 1/250th of a second. So again, shooting with the flash is going to be very, very useful. Of course, allowing, shooting beyond the 1/80th sync speed found on other Fuji camera systems. Now, of course, in addition to the new focal plane shutter, its design also allows for the centering of the tripod socket to the actual lens axis of the sensor axis, so that now, of course, when you are doing any unique panoramics, again, everything is all aligned with the sensor and lens itself. The X-Pro2 is no exception when it comes to external controls. In fact, most of Fuji's mirrorless camera systems offer some unique controls externally to make it easier for photographers to access the commonly used exposures like shutter speeds, aperture, including exposure compensation. So looking at the X-Pro2, you got a shutter speed dial that goes from 1/8000th of a second to a bulb mode. There's also a T setting on it that allows you to use the command dial to shift the shutter speeds from 30 seconds all the way up to even 1/8000th of a second. So if you don't want to use the command dial to adjust your shutter speeds, you can just set it to the T dial instead on the shutter speeds. Now, the shutter speed itself doubles as an ISO control. So lifting up the shutter speed and twisting it allows you to adjust the ISO on the fly, which again is very reminiscent of some of the old film cameras back in the days. And again, at the X-Pro2, the overall design of it and feel of it really is all about that tactile control. The camera also offers an exposure compensation dial that goes from plus or minus 3 stops. There's also a C position that allows you to use the command dial to adjust the exposure compensation to up to plus or minus 5 stops. So if you wanted to do that, that would be great, especially when shooting an aperture priority with this camera and you don't want to fiddle with the shutter speed dials. You can actually just rotate the exposure dial, compensation dial, to shift the exposure. And because it's a mirrorless camera, you see it reflective on the back of the LCD screen instantly, which makes it, of course, very easy to use. Now, you got, of course, the front and rear command dial that allows you to adjust certain settings within the camera. You also have many directional pads on the back that navigates the menu. You got your Q quick menu like any of the Fuji cameras that give you access to some of the most commonly used settings on the camera. Of course, it's fully configurable by just holding down the Q menu for a few seconds and setting the items that you want in that menu. Of course, you got a new metering button that offers an additional metering option. You got average, you got spot metering, you got multi-metering, and now you have a new center weighted metering, which kind of looks at the average of the scene, but weighs most of its measurements in the center of the scene itself, making it again very similar to, of course, what's offered in other camera systems out there. Now, on the back of the camera, you got, of course, the standard controls, the playback button, the delete button. And you also have this new joystick that allows you to quickly move the autofocus points in any direction really quickly. And of course, the autofocus points themselves have been expanded from 49 up to now 77 points, of course, of which you can size the points bigger or smaller. And of course, you can increase those focus points up to 273 points, again, making this camera very configurable. Now, the camera offers several function buttons around the camera, including the one in the front, the one on the top plate, which of course is defaulted to the video recording, which quickly holding down the function button for a few seconds will allow you, of course, to change that to a setting that you like to use more often than not, whether it's access to white balance, film simulation modes, or things like that. Now, holding down the display back button for just a few seconds will also bring up the function setting screens that show you all 6 function buttons, where they are and what they're set to, so that you can, of course, quickly configure those to your liking as well, making the X-Pro2 really fully configurable to the style of shooting that you plan to do with it. Now, on the side of the camera, you got your standard ports. You got your 2.5mm mic port, which also doubles as a release port if you have one of those devices to quickly trigger the camera. You got your USB connection, and you got your micro HDMI connection. Now, the USB connection, of course, can be connected to our a USB remote to allow you to trigger the camera. Of course, the shutter speed dial on top of the X-Pro2 also has a manual thread to, of course, attach a manual cable release if you really want to go old school and shoot some self-timer shots without having to, of course, push the button on the camera physically yourself. Now, the side of the camera lies, of course, the memory card slot, and now it's actually up to 2 cards. So the X-Pro1 initially had the memory card slot with the battery in the bottom. Now that you have this camera on a tripod, you don't have to open up the camera in order to change the memory cards. And of course, slot 1 supports cards up to ultra high speed 2, supporting, of course, SD, SDHC, and SDXC compatible cards. Then you have slot number 2, which supports speeds up to ultra high speed 1 card and below. So for recording video or we're shooting raw, you definitely want to use slot 1. Of course, using your fastest card in slot 1 is ideal. You can configure the write and read on this so that it writes to either 1 card first and then fills the 2nd card afterwards, or you can write to both 1 and 2 at the exact same time. Also, you can record things like RAW on one and of course JPEG on the other. So those are options that are available to you, of course, with a dual slot. So there's a lot of external controls around this camera. You got your front lever in the front of the X-Pro1, just like the X-Pro2, to control the advanced hybrid multi-viewfinder that's available on the X-Pro2. On the side, if you are a studio shooter and you're not using any wireless releases on top, triggers on top, you got a built-in PC sync connector, and it's actually quite high up on this camera now, basically allowing you to not to interfere with the camera itself. So these are some really nice external controls and add-ons that the X-Pro2 offers over the existing, the old model, the X-Pro1. Talking about the advanced hybrid multi-viewfinder on the X-Pro2, the front switch quickly allows you to jump between an optical viewfinder to an electronic viewfinder that offers a 2.36 million dot display The display itself has also been bumped up thanks to the X-Processor Pro offering up to 85 frames per second in terms of refresh rates. So it makes it very, very fast to actually see. And when you're looking through that electronic viewfinder, of course, it almost looks like if you're looking through now an optical viewfinder. Of course, this being the X-Pro2 and this having the advanced hybrid multi-viewfinder, you can flip the switch to quickly look through the optical viewfinder itself that offers a heads-up display which is fully configurable, allowing you to customize that. In addition to that, it also takes on the same electronic rangefinder feature that the X100T that has. And again, pushing forward while in the optical viewfinder mode will bring that up, bringing a very small neutral density filter that the camera projects onto, allowing you to use both the optical viewfinder as well as the electronic viewfinder at the same time, making it very useful to, of course, confirming the focus. Of course, if you're doing manual focus, it also makes it a lot easier and possible to use the optical viewfinder with a manual focusing lens, or even focusing manually on Fuji's autofocus lens. Now, the viewfinder itself on the side now has a built-in diopter adjustment. That's been sort of a big request from the existing X-Pro1 users who didn't like having to buy diopter glasses, and of course now they can quickly change that on fly with that built in to it. Now, the diopter adjustment is there. You got a new depth of field scale that's in the viewfinder, and you can actually configure that to display in pixels or in 35mm film format, and making it easier, of course, for you to zone focus now with the X-Pro2. The autofocus system on the X-Pro1, when it first launched, was not the fastest, but through some firmware updates, Fuji really optimized the autofocus algorithms to really improve the camera from initial launch, which is actually great for some, but that was almost 2.5 years ago. Looking at the X-Pro2 now, of course, it utilizes one of the fastest processors on the market, as well as a new increased phase detection sensor that now actually makes this camera very, very fast for autofocusing, and provides for things like up to 77 points with a 7x11 grid, as well as up to 273 points of autofocus. So again, you can quickly use the joystick on the back, or the focus lever on the back, to navigate through those points. And of course, pushing inwards for a few seconds on the focus lever will allow you to configure that so that you can turn it off, have it automatically move the focus points, or have you push the button first in order to move the focus points. So again, it is configurable to the way you want to use it. Now, for manual focusing, of course, the X-Pro2 does offer focus peaking that helps you, of course, highlight the areas of highest contrast with a unique color like red, blue, or white. There's also, of course, a digital split image that's, again, featured on Fuji's camera, very much similar to kind of using the phase detection pixels and lining those up. Now, what's different with the X-Pro2 in that is that it now is offered in full color, so it's going to make it a little bit easier sometimes for the focusing. Now, the camera offers 8 frames per second shooting raw and JPEG. It has a big buffer, so you know when you're firing fast action shots, you know you're not going to have to worry about that buffer loading up and taking a long time to take the next shot. In fact, you can fire a bunch of shots, let go, fire a bunch of shots, and the camera will constantly buffer, and it does have a much greater buffer now as well. And again, thanks to the X-Processor Pro, it makes the whole system very fast. In combination with the continuous autofocus system and using the new zone focusing as well, it's gonna make this camera a lot easier to shoot sports action shot if that's your plans for the X-Pro2. Now, aside from that, you still got your standard face detection. Fuji's unique eye detection can quickly identify the subject's eye, so that when you do take pictures of portraits, that your subjects are in focus. And that's, of course, very important because of the large APS-C size sensor. Using a fast prime makes it very easy to get things out of focus. So having eye detection is going to ensure, of course, that your portrait shots always come in focus. And of course, you can set it to the auto mode or choose left and right eye, of course, to your needs. That's some of the new autofocus features with the X-Pro2. the combination of the new focal plane shutter and just pushing the shutter button, you know, I really feel that the X-Pro2 now is kind of like an SLR, you know. I can pick it up, snap, 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 and it feels like, you know, I'm shooting an SLR. The actual focal plane shutter itself, again, has this nice sound to it. It's not very loud, but also it's very kind of isolated, and it gives you a nice feel that you're actually taking the shot. And again, I really like the new design, and again, the autofocus system in combination with the focal plane shutter, in combination with Fuji's X-Processor Pro, in combination of Fuji's 24.3 megapixel X-Trans sensor, makes this camera really a viable option when looking at you know, cameras even higher than this. Now the X-Pro2, looking at it, really is about photography. It really wants you to pick it up, and it really wants you to take better photos. You know, whether it's the ergonomics of the controls, the grip, the layout of the buttons themselves. I mean, when I see this camera, it really is a camera where, you know, if I'm not getting good pictures, at least I'm looking good, you know, and that's a great thing with the X-Pro2. Not to say, you know, you should buy this camera because it looks really good, but the fact that, you know, hey, it does look good, and it also does take some incredible picture using Fuji's, again, unique technology and unique processing. Now, the X-Pro2 also offers, beyond the photographic functions, other features. You got this new film simulation mode, Acros film, that basically is Fuji's black and white portrait film, very much like Neopan, and really simulates, you know, some of the fine grains to pull up some details in black and white portrait. You also have the ability to increase the film grains in the camera, so you can set it up from low, medium, and high, again giving that film-like look to the image itself. You got the 4 different metering options, which I mentioned earlier, and even the menu system has been slightly improved over the existing Fuji mirrorless camera system, making it easier and grouping things together, again making it easy to quickly set the settings, whether it's image quality, your autofocus, whether it's shooting settings, movie settings, flash settings. There's even a new My Menu option that allows you to pick some of these settings within the menu and save them to the My Menu, so that you don't have to run through 6 different screens. They're all set in that one screen for you, especially the things that you quickly wanted to change. It's allowed within the My Menu customization. The camera also uses, of course, the same NP126W battery. So again, if you have a Fuji mirrorless camera system, like an X-Pro1 or X-T10, X-T1, you can still reuse those batteries. The camera also now has an improved battery meter that does offer at least 5 bars showing you, you know, 80%, 60%, 40%, 20%. So you're not surprised when, you know, you're pulling up the camera and it's ready to go, and then all of a sudden it's dead. So that's a nice improvement, of course, and I really appreciate them finally bringing that up to speed. Of course, the bracketing functions are there as well. You got your you got the different multi bracketing options. You know, white balance bracketing, dynamic range bracketing. There's even, you know, exposure bracketing as well, and various different things like film simulation bracketing, which I like using a lot because of some of the really cool modes that I like to shoot in, especially Astia, the new Acros film simulation, and of course Fuji's Velvia settings, which really is great for landscape and colorful shots. Now, aside from that, aside from the professional part of you, if you are just shooting for fun, the X-Pro2 also offers, you know, the advanced filter functions that are found on other Fuji cameras. So again, you got things like the miniature effect, toy camera, which gives you a little bit of vignetting. You also got the partial color that isolates, of course, one color from the scene, giving it a very unique artistic look to it, especially if you're shooting at a pumpkin patch and you just want to isolate the pumpkins and everything else remains in basically monochrome. You have built-in Wi-Fi now, which is great. It supports the camera remote app so that you can control the shutter speeds, the aperture, the ISO. You can release the shutter directly from the app itself, and the app, of course, supports both iOS and Android. You, of course, can transfer now images from, of course, the camera to the app. And if you have an Instax Share printer, then you could, of course, use the Wi-Fi to connect the X-Pro2 directly to it to make your instant prints, which is kind of unique, especially if you're, a photographer that does a lot of traveling overseas and taking a lot of pictures of places where you probably won't ever go to. Some of the people that you take, it's nice to give something back to them, and having an image shot with the X-Pro2 printed on an Instax Share printer and giving it to them is really a nice thing to do because they now have something to keep. And some of these people probably haven't seen a photograph ever, so that's kind of a thing to do. Of course, the X-Pro2 has, a movie mode to it. You offer 1080p. You have different frame rate settings. You have the ability to control both shutter speeds, aperture, exposure compensation, white balance settings. You got the, of course, the port for the external mic. In fact, I'm recording with a camera right now. So again, this is, a good feature to have. I wouldn't say that the movie mode is the feature you should look at when buying the X-Pro2, but with the latest processor on this camera, it's now able to actually process the videos a lot better, reducing a lot of the moire and a lot of the false colors that are found in the previous camera model. So that's going to be a nice improvement, at least to the video mode. I like the way the X-Pro2 looks. Its design, its feel, its look is perfect. It actually fits well in my hands. But if you have a little bit bigger hands than I do, the X-Pro2, of course, also offers a metal hand grip that increases the gripping on the camera and also the depth. It also adds, of course, an Arca Swift quick release connector as well, and gives you access to the battery door. So again, you can keep that on always. And it being a Fuji made accessory, that the finish and fit is impeccable, and it almost looks seamless when attached to the X-Pro2. There will also be a half case available for this camera, a really nice leather half case that really makes this camera stand apart from its competition. And it's really where this camera is at, right? It takes good photos, and it also looks good at the same time. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video about the X-Pro2. If you'd like to learn more about this and other Fujifilm products, again, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter at Fuji Guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time. Until then, I'm Billy of the Fuji Guys.